Looking at the league table in Spain, it isn't at all surprising to see Real Madrid at the top. That's not out of the ordinary by any means, but the disappointing campaigns from their classic direct rivals has led to an incredible lead over ATLETICO and Barcelona, but not Sevilla. Hey, I'm Adrian. How are ya? Good, I hope. Welcome to Rabona TV and a warm welcome back to all of our returning subscribers. Happy to have you guys, and the newbies as well. You guys are always welcome. So today we're going to look at La Liga, not at Real Madrid, as there are no complaints when it comes to how they have performed this season, but we'll quickly go over Atleti and Barcelona's failures and how Sevilla is setting a great example of just how a club can be run financially responsibly while still being very competitive, clearly. Speaking of being financially responsible, there's no room for that in fantasy football. And for today's video, we're sponsored by SPITCH, the ultimate fantasy football app on the market. With SPITCH, you can build your own team from officially licensed leagues such as the Bundesliga, Premier League, Championship, and even the Champions League, amongst others, of course. And the best part, you can play for free while also winning real money just for being good at fantasy football. All you do is choose the competition you want to take part in, such as the Premier League, then choose your formation, choose your players, while respecting the budget, of course, and SPITCH's analytics help you choose your team. Select your captain, and away you go. So use the link below to play SPITCH for free, dominate others, show off your knowledge, and win stuff. All right, vamos. Atletico's triumph last season perhaps came as a surprise to some, and has been written off by others. Yes, Real Madrid went through an incredible injury crisis like few teams in Europe had to face. To that extent, at least, yes, Barcelona were a dumpster fire, but Atletico were also playing some genuinely great football under Simeone last season, at least in the first half of it. The first half of the season saw a different kind of Atleti, utilizing Luis Suarez to great effect to finish off opportunities that previously would have gone begging, changing their shape a bit to their now standard hybrid back three that becomes either a back four or five depending on their situation and opponent, of course, utilizing players such as Thomas Lemar in different roles more centrally, and in general playing a more attack-minded game than was previously associated with Simeone's Atletico Madrid, or at the very least, the most effective attacking football they had played in some time, and consistently. The latter half of the season saw them revert to the Atleti of old, beginning to labor in the attack and seemingly get drawn back into their shell a bit. Results started to slip, and what could have been a 13-point lead in the winter was scythed down to just a 2-point margin, as Zidane's injury-ravaged Real Madrid still managed to push the final league positions to the very last day of the campaign. It was decided on matchday 38. And this season, that poor form has continued, despite all of their investment into the squad, bringing in the likes of Rodrigo de Paul, Antoine Griezmann making his big return, and Matheus Cunha to bolster their attack. In doing so, their defense has suffered. For so long, we've been used to Simeone's side having the best defense in the league, or at least being a very, very close second. As of now, after 20 matches played, Atletico's defense is ranked 11th in the league. 11th, let that sink in. This is a terrible way to defend your title, as Atleti are currently 16 points behind Real Madrid. We all know the issues surrounding Barcelona, and it seems like under Xavi, the process of turning a corner has begun. No, the results haven't had an instant fix with the signing of Xavi, but the culture around the club needs mending. The squad needs revamping and ridding of costly players who aren't contributing enough to justify their salaries, and their values need mending. I do think that under Xavi, they are well on their way to a return to what brought them success, believing in youth and playing with the identity that made them so successful, but it's far too early in their rebuild to expect anything of Barcelona in this moment. Of the things that we listed as what they need to do, they haven't completely checked any boxes just yet, because these things are gradual. You can't fix a club in a day, nor can you revert all of the mistakes from the past in one day. More disappointing results will come as the youngsters in the club find their feet, but it's looking promising for them in the long term. I know it's hard to come by amongst football supporters, but what Barcelona needs more than ever right now is just time and patience, and then perhaps we can speak about them being title contenders again in the future. There's a fine balance between fiscal responsibility and doing what it takes to ensure your team is competitive in any given competition. With Atletico and Barca stumbling, Sevilla have relentlessly been chasing Real Madrid throughout the season. They're currently 5 points behind them, but they could just cut that deficit to just 2 points if they win their match in hand. And all of this isn't a mistake. Under Julen Lopetegui and with the return of Monchi, Sevilla went from disarray, finishing in 6th and 7th and going through 5 managers in 2 seasons, to consecutive 4th place finishes and yet another Europa League title back in 2020. Sevilla are consistently there or thereabouts at the top of La Liga, and one of the biggest contributing factors to their success has been thanks to their director of football, Monchi. Monchi is a Sevilla man through and through. His playing career, in which he was a keeper, saw him represent Sevilla and Sevilla only, and after retiring from football 1 year later, he took on the role of director of football at the club. As the story goes, a story that has been told and celebrated over and over, he was tasked with the developing of the club's academy and scouting system. There have been numerous victories as far as the youth system goes at Sevilla. Sergio Ramos, Jesus Navas, Alberto Moreno, and more all come to mind, players who were sold at a profit later. But the way that Monchi really made a name for himself was his scouting system. If you were to combine some of his best transfer coups, you could build a team consisting of the likes of Dani Alves, Ivan Rakitic, Julio Baptista, Seydou Keita, Luis Fabiano, and more for just 25 million euros. Going through all of those players and more, Sevilla sold them for around 170 million total. This is what he does best, and is how Sevilla has been so dominant in Europe at the Europa League level. His scouting system finds those diamonds in the rough, diamonds that fit into his coherent squad building philosophy, a philosophy that in some ways, at least, not always, but in some ways, negates the financial might or advantages that other clubs may have over them at a continental level. Here's my man Alan Feely of Football España speaking of their setup.
In Sevilla's case, for instance, are building a very experienced, here for the now competitive team that's basically funded by player sales. So if you look at Sevilla at the moment, they're second in La Liga, 5 points behind Real Madrid with a game in hands. They're keeping pace with them every step of the way this season. And they've done that from having a nice mix of players like, you know, Yassine Bono from Morocco, who kind of was an unappreciated jewel when he came to the club. Jules Koundé and Diego Carlos are a good balance of the kind of players they have. You know, Koundé is young, the future ahead of him. He's going to be one of the best centre backs in world football, in my opinion. Diego Carlos is a bit older. He's not quite as strong as Koundé, but he's a very effective player in his own right, in the right system. Both were signed in the same summer from France. You know, you've likes of Fernando Regis, who was formerly in Manchester City and Galatasaray. He's 35 years old, but he's performing at a level where he's probably the best defensive midfielder in La Liga at the moment. You know, and the list goes on. You've players who are underappreciated jewels from France and from Argentina and from Portugal, who come into the club and perform at a high level because of a competent coach, a director of football who's in complete control in Monchi, and a board that lets him do what he wants because he's in charge of the club. He is the club.
Within 6 years of Monchi taking over, Sevilla were Europa League champions back in 2006. And the numbers back what Alan was saying about player sales funding signings. I mean, we could go year by year, or we could look at overall. In the 20 seasons that Monchi has been involved with the club, Sevilla have brought in more money from player sales than they have spent. With Monchi in charge, so subtracting the 2 seasons he spent at AS Roma, Sevilla's net transfer spend has been at a profit of 29.9 million euros. In total, including the 2 AS Roma seasons of which Monchi wasn't at the club, they've made a profit of 46.29 million euros since 2000, the year Monchi joined. Clearly, they continued his best practices during his Roman holiday. Now, when you look at it at face value, 30 million in transfer profit doesn't seem like a ton over 22 years. But there are 2 things to consider here. Most clubs, if we're talking the cream of the crop elites, almost never have a net positive transfer balance, as they are the teams that buy talent from clubs like Sevilla. And with that in mind, point number 2 is all the more impressive. We've seen Sevilla fund their signings through their sales, with their incredible scouting network playing a big role in that. And all the while, they've won trophies. They aren't just a talent factory feeder club. They are a club that is competitive in La Liga season upon season and have managed to win the Europa League more than any other club in UEFA's history. And they won their first title just 16 years ago. That's astounding. And with their financial model, They have the second highest ceiling financially in La Liga. What do I mean by that? You know how with all of the, clownery that was going on at Barcelona financially lately, we started to hear a lot about their spending cap, if you will. It used to be as high as 600 million for one season, then it dropped to 382 million last season, and this season, with all of their issues, it sits at 97 million. That's a ridiculous drop. Conversely, Real Madrid's fiscally responsible approach has them pegged as the team with the highest spending cap in the league, while Sevilla ranks second with a 200 million euro spending cap. A team that had no budget and was forced to make 500,000 euro signings around the turn of the century now has the second highest ceiling when it comes to spending cap. And all the while, they haven't sacrificed titles, winning 9 along the way. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. My club, Benfica, also has made a shitload in player sales, but what do they have to show for it at a continental level? Nothing. Yeah, league titles are great, of course, but when you're one of 5 clubs that has won the league in Portugal, it's not as impressive. Anyway, thanks again for watching, guys. I appreciate you taking the time, and take care. Ciao.